All right, this is problem number 5 on 1-4, homework, solving absolute values. And what we have here is 2 parts for the directions: solve the equation and check your solutions. All right, so what I got to do now is I got to isolate the absolute value, meaning that -3, which is next to the absolute value bar, means to multiply. So I have to get rid of it by dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by -3. Now I'm left with the absolute value of 4x minus 9 is equal to, and 24 divided by -3 is -8. All right, I can continue on, but according to the definition that was in 1-4B notes, any absolute value cannot be equal to a negative number. It can be a positive or 0, but not a negative number. So without any more work, I can go straight to this answer, empty set. All right, we have problem number 6 from 1-4 homework for Algebra 2 honors. All right, I see 5 minus 3 times the absolute value of 2 plus 2w, and that is equal to a -5. All right, I can't say for right now that this is an empty set. What I got to do first is isolate the absolute value. So I want to get this by itself. All right, so we're going to use reverse PEMDAS. So I'm not going to divide -3 to both sides. What I want to do is I'm going to get rid of this 5. And I'm going to look in front, and I do know that this is a positive 5. So for me to move it or to cancel it out, I am going to subtract 5. And the property of equality says whatever I do on one side, I do to the other. You see that cancels out. I'm left with a -3 times the absolute value of 2 plus 2w, absolute value. Notice I'm not losing the absolute value bars yet. I'm still trying to isolate. All right, so I still do not have the absolute value isolated. And remember that a number next to the absolute value bar means to multiply, but we cannot distribute. We cannot distribute the 3 to the 2 and the 2w because it's an absolute value. So this is what we cannot do. So we're not going to do that. We are actually going to do what we did in the previous problem. We're going to go ahead and divide by a -3 because that's the inverse of multiplication. Whatever I do on one side, I do to the other. And then I end up with the absolute value of 2 plus 2w is equal to 4. And you can see why I hesitated to wanted to write a absolute or a empty set, because now my answer here is a positive, and I can go ahead and solve it. All right, so I'm going to go to the next slide and solve it. All right, here's continuation from the last slide. This is what we got when we isolated the variable. I'm going to go ahead and go 2 plus 2w is equal to -4. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and solve for w. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I got 2w is equal to -6. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. And w is equal to -3. And then I'm going to do the next one. 2 plus 2w is equal to 4. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2. I'm going to use reverse PEMDAS. I have 2w is equal to 2. Divide both sides by 2. And w is equal to 1. The one thing I am not going to do is the second part. And that second part says, check your solution. You can do that on your own. And if you remember from your notes, I'm going to plug and chug these into the OG, or the original one, or I can go back and plug it into my modified one. All right, this is number 7 from 1-4 homework. The last email question that I had. You can see that it's not isolated, so I need to get rid of the -5. And since 5 next to an absolute value is like multiplying, I'm going to use the inverse. divide both sides, and now I have the absolute value of 6a plus 2 is equal to a positive 3. That means I can no longer use the empty set. I'm going to go ahead right now and solve both equations. So the first one is I'm going to go 6a plus 2 is equal to negative 3. And the other one is I go 6a plus 2 is equal to 3. And yes, it is raining outside. Minus 2, minus 2. 6a is equal to negative 5. Divide both sides by a positive 6. And one of my possible answers is negative 5 over 6. I'll go ahead and do this side. And I get 6a is equal to 1. When I subtract both sides by 2, divide both sides by 6. And one of my possible answers is 1 over 6. What am I not doing? What step am I skipping? Is check your solutions. Check your solutions is one of the things I grade for. And when you check your solution by plugging and chugging, whether it's into the original, so you can plug it into this one, or you can plug it into that one. All right, if you still don't understand, I will have these ready for tomorrow in case you want me to go over them.